Today, we're going to share the secrets of a man who's not only mastered the art of personal training, but has also grown a fitness facility doing nearly 1,000 hours of one-on-one personal training per month.
Welcome to Becoming the Ultimate Fitness Coach with the Jock and the Doc podcast, where fitness meets behavioral science. Join your hosts, Scott Schutte, a seasoned personal trainer, gym owner, and 360 wellness coach, and Dr. Janine Steester, a PhD behaviorist and expert in all things behavior change, as they share their combined expertise to empower fitness professionals like you with practical tips, cutting-edge topics, and industry-leading guests. You'll learn everything from motivation and goal setting to habit formation and overcoming obstacles. Whether you're a seasoned fitness pro or just starting off your coaching journey, Becoming the Ultimate Fitness Coach is your essential guide to mastering the art of coaching and changing lives.
So we're excited to have Mitch Shooks with us, who Scott and I both know. And this is somebody, Mitch has had 25 years of experience as a trainer in the fitness industry. In addition to that, has been running his 5,000 square foot training facility for 9 years, has 9 personal trainers, 2 stretch therapists, and a Chinese medical doctor on staff. And if that wasn't enough, he also has an internship program where he's educating up to 10 college students a year. So I'm pretty excited to pick his brain.
Yeah, and so I want to kick this off with the first question of what we're seeing a lot at conferences, people advertising, is that small group training is hot right now, real hot. But Mitch is definitely crushing it in the one-on-one personal training space. So Mitch, why are you seeing so much success there, and why do you think everyone else is pushing the small group training?
Yeah, first, why they're pushing it. I think it's profit margin. It's a lot easier to do 4 people at the same time at a lower price point and kind of hit that for a less premium service. I think one of the comments we hear a lot when we're at conferences is, I switched from the one-on-one to one-on-4 and I'm crushing it. And the thing that always struck me is, like, if I diluted my product 75% and the customer's happier, I had a pretty bad product to start with. And I think what differentiates the one-on-one people who are doing it well is that you have a very distinguishable service. It is not the same as doing one-on-4 or one-on-3 or one-on-6. So what makes our one-on-one model work, and I know this is kind of cliche, is it's very customized. But when a client comes in, we do an extensive health history. We work with their doctors. We look at blood work. We look at sleep history. It's probably more of a bridge of that gap between functional medicine and personal training, where we're saying, hey, what are all these lifestyle factors we want to go after? And then the program is specific to that person. It might be we're dealing with injuries or a knee replacement. We had one guy had a knee replacement, wanted to ski the Swiss Alps 6 weeks later after he was done with rehab. I mean, you can't throw that guy into a group training. You have to get him very specific stuff. And I think if your product is done right, if you're really offering that one-on-one service, almost like a concierge, like really nailing it, I think there's plenty of room in the market for one-on-one training still.
And since I'm always the behavior kind of person, when you think about the types of trainers you have, even your own personality, do you feel like there's certain characteristics that really need to be in place for it to be successful, in addition to all the other things that you mentioned?
Yeah. So years ago, there's a group out of Australia. I think it's Shredded Institute. I know that it's a great PT program. And I remember asking her at the conference, I was like, hey, how do you find good trainers? And I was a young trainer. I hadn't opened my facility yet, but I remember thinking her answer was so flippant. She's like, hire good people, hire nice people, hire people who care about other people. And I was just like, she's blowing me off. She doesn't have time. And it's probably one of the best pieces of advice I was given. You can't teach genuine care. I can teach all the other skills: sets, reps, tempo, load, programming, the science behind it. So what we look for is somebody who has a story, like a personal journey into fitness. Either, they had a coach who really reached out and got them in there. They had this tremendous weight loss journey. They had the great experience of competing at a high level, but then the tragic injury or maybe eating disorder if they were in the figure world. I love the people who got into it, have a story. And then the next part is I want to help somebody else along that journey. And so within that, Like that's great if I get that to start. And then I need the person who's just hungry to learn. Like, because when it comes to behavior stuff, it's probably the hardest thing to teach, right? Breaking down behaviors, getting people to do stuff. And it takes somebody who genuinely cares and is willing to try not just one or two or three methods, but just over and over, trying to find that thing that's going to push the person to better behavior. And through our internship program, kind of working with one of the consultants we hired, we've been able to kind of narrow down what that person looks like and kind of find them. And we've been really lucky. I have just such an amazing team right now.
That's awesome. I love the people with the story part as well. So talking about, you talked about being with at that conference and asking for advice. And I know that you're a lifelong learner. We definitely are as well. So when you think about the fitness industry and those conferences and places that you go and just what you're reading, what do you think the fitness industry is doing well?
Yeah. So I think the one thing they're doing really well, there's an option no matter where you are in your fitness journey, right? If you want the 20-minute, I don't know what I'm doing, supervised, kind of safe fitness thing, there's that. There's the CrossFit community for the competitive aspect of working out. The kind of cardio junkie Orange Theory. There really isn't. I think somebody has said, "Hey, I want to get into fitness, but this doesn't exist yet for me." I feel like there's so much out there. I'd say you can find your tribe in fitness pretty easily now. That's probably the best thing I would say we're doing.
So on the other end of the spectrum, what do you think the biggest pain point is that the industry is facing, or that the industry needs to address?
Yeah. Okay. So let's take that same example though, right? Like now you have all these options, and then a lot of times they're all promising the same thing, right? Because this is often a very aesthetic driven field for most people. I want to get in better shape. I want to lose weight. I want to look better. And most things are promising that. The boot camp, the CrossFit, the family gym membership, right? Just come out, work with us. We'll lose weight, get in better shape. And I think with that pain point is there's just a ton of confusion. Like who's the expert in the industry? Where's the good advice? And then if I end up hiring somebody or I join this class, how do I know this is actually working for me? Is there a way to measure that progress? And I think that probably more than anything is one of the things that drove me into the industry. As I really struggled with trying to get results for myself as a young, early getting into weightlifting. I wasn't into sports. And so this was kind of my intro into movement, and very confused about what it took. And I didn't know the first guy I was training with had no clue what he was doing. He was just a giant of a man and loved, shouting out one more rep at me. But that was my experience. I was like, oh, he must know what he's doing, and I'm taking powders and pills, and that was my first intro to it. And I think that still exists today. There's just, should I be in athletic greens, or should I be in collagen, or is green tea extract the one that's going to get me lean, or is it high carb, low fat? And I think the average consumer doesn't have the tool set to distinguish whether they're getting good advice or not, because you have to have some level of expertise in any subject to be able to differentiate whether that person you're learning from actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, and we see that a lot with this. We're in this information age, and whatever subject we're talking about, I can find an expert, a researcher, a doctor talking on both sides of it, whether it's we need to go high fat or low fat, whether we need to go 6 meals a day or intermittent fasting, whether we need to eat just vegetables or eat just meat. Like, we can see very educated people, having this. And so to me, I understand where a lot of these clients are coming from of being so confused. And this is why I like, and we have a similar model with the one-on-one approach and having these conversations off the floor where we're really diving deep into what is best for that person. Because we've all seen people have some success with keto or vegetarian or whatever the thing is, but there's certain parameters they need to be in. And I think what the consumer misses a lot of is what's best for them. And so when we talk about something like that individual like coaching session, I know you do that. Talk to me how that process works at your facility.
Yeah. So we start everybody with a little bit of a health history, maybe 4 to 6 pages. So we like to look at behavior. So when are you going to bed and when are you waking up? How often are you currently moving? We like some history, certainly like injuries and stuff like that. But I also like to know like what's worked in the past. Did you do, the South Beach diet back in the day, or were you, 40, 30, 30 that worked really good? What's their relationship to food? So how healthy do they currently feel they are? Where do they see their own obstacles? A lot of people know kind of where they're coming from. They just maybe don't know why or what the solution is in that. So we'll gather that information, and then we'll usually do some form of an assessment of body mass. So it might be a 3D scan, it might be a caliper reading, it might be bioelectrical impedance, but we really like to have some data there, especially if the person's going after an aesthetic goal, or if muscle mass increase is one of the things, the metrics they want to go after. It's nice to have that measurement in there. Whereas that used to be the crux of what we do. Now that's more of a, like, sometimes we'll use that, sometimes I won't. But then it dives deep into laying out goal-wise, where do they want to go? And then how fast do they want to go after those goals? What's realistic? Because there's often a disconnect between our perceived effort and the reality. So a person will feel like they're making a ton of changes, and often they are, right? They're eating more vegetables, they're eating out less, they're having less alcohol. They're in the gym more than they've ever been. They're doing some cardio on the outside. And then when we lay it all out, right, what is this almost insurmountable change for them? They're doing so much is almost at the beginning of where we'll start to see some of that visual change in the physique, right? We'll start to see a little bit of weight loss, maybe some muscle mass gain, because it often takes a lot more work than that person's expecting. And so setting some realistic expectations with that person early on. And you and I have talked about the walks, run, sprint kind of method of like how fast, because it's funny, their perception of what they think is a lot and what our reality of what we know it takes to move those things can be very different. And I don't ever want somebody to come in and have this overwhelming sense of like, I'm doing all these big changes. Like, when is it going to happen? And it's like, well, realistically, this is what's going to happen. So we try to lay that out. Then they'll meet with our trainer. They'll do a physical assessment, which will look for imbalances in strength, muscle mass. That trainer will then write a program, kind of customized on those goals. And then we usually give them 2 to 4 action steps they need to work on in the next 2 weeks. So it might be as simple as like, you're going to go to bed at 11:30 every night instead of midnight. Like, we're just 11:30 is our cutoff time. We're going to go to bed and we're going to get 2 weight workouts a week. And then that coach will try and reinforce those behaviors with them. They're going to hear that person a lot more than me or one of our other coaches who does this behavior coaching. And then we have a shared note on the client, so that when we have that follow-up meeting in 2 weeks where they're going to meet one-on-one in the office for behavior coaching, we'll then check that note, see what they're telling the trainer during that. So it might have been like, hey, we're going to work on eating a salad every day, just getting in some greens. And it turns out that was really overwhelming after 2 days. They just totally dropped the ball on that. Well, that's good to know, so that when I come into that meeting, I can then kind of give them some direction on what maybe an easier step would be. Maybe the expectation 1 salad a week is, kind of where we want to go. And so that's kind of the crux of how we handle kind of the intake and then the early phase of that. And then the longer we go, the more customized we will kind of tailor everything to their outcome and goal wise, what they're looking at.
There's really 2 things there that really stood out to me that we really teach a lot of people. One is the take it off the floor. So you're having these conversations in a one-on-one setting, which I think is super important, because this is something Dr. J is big on, of like, people aren't going to remember these conversations on the floor. So I think that's super important. The other one, like the recommendation that you made for the person on sleep, you use like 12 o'clock to 11:30. It's more of this, we're big on this minimal effective dose. Would it ideally be 9 or 10 o'clock? Possibly. There's a lot of scenarios that work in there, but like taking someone where they're at and slowly adjusting that, and then you can find that routine time. Because I know myself as a young trainer and a lot of the young coaches out there, it's more of like, well, you want these results, here's exactly what you do. But that's such a big jump. It's like the person not making any money being like, well, here's how you make your first million. Well, they need to make their first, 10,000 kind of deal. Like we need
Right.
this kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'll show you guys this real quick, which might be upside down. Yeah. So these are our
Go the way.
And I had to have it.
Yep.
Yeah. So what we found is we would give them those action steps and I'd be like, hey, just write these down as we go through them. And it's amazing that even the interpretation, right, of like, hey, I just want to eat one salad at lunch, mix it up, maybe mixed greens this week. Next week, it's baby spinach, have a salad, you're like, okay, no, I want you to have a salad every day. And so like the person will interpret something, that you thought you made super clear. And before we did this, we would give them these couple of points. By the time they've hit the door, they've forgotten everything we talked about. And then I'm getting that text or email later that night, like, hey, what was I supposed to work on? And so we take a picture of that. We send it to the trainer. So the next time they're working with the trainer, they've got that. And then that goes on their fridge. We're like, hey, if you wonder what you're supposed to do before you see me in 2 weeks, here's your 2 or 3 things. Like just refer back to that. And so one, it kind of helps solidify the behavior because you have to be very clear on what you want them to do, right? Because sometimes we get into ambiguity and that at the early stages, I find clarity is best, right? It's like almost like working with a child. They need to know where the boundaries are and the rules are. And then as they show, they can stay within those boundaries. You give them more and more freedom. But also the interpretation of like, here's what I said. What did you hear me say? That was one of the tips. I don't know if I stole that from somebody or we came up with it, but that one's been kind of gold for us.
Nice. Love it.
Well, and Scott and I recently had done a podcast on that walk, jog, sprint type of thing. So I love that you talked about clarifying what their expectations are, how much effort they think they're putting in with what we kind of know is going to eventually happen. So that and that clarity of language and really just making sure that people understand. And I think you've both referenced earlier in your careers about kind of approaches you took as opposed to now, which kind of leads into my next question about if you were to do something differently as you started as a personal trainer, what would you tell your former self to do differently starting out in this career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing I did wait too long on was finding somebody doing it better than me. And just willing to pony up the money and spend time learning from somebody doing it really well. So I was pretty good about finding parallel experts, like the good chiropractor in town, the good PT guy,
Gotcha.
The massage therapist. And it's a very ego-driven industry. Like a lot of times it's a one-man show. Like there'll be another gym owner, studio place, where that person is like, they want to be the center of attention. It's probably not the guy you want to learn from. They're probably not the person who's willing to give up that time, but it's amazing how many guys are probably somewhat under the radar who are just doing a fantastic job and are more than willing to share their knowledge. And they might not be in your city. Like I drove, 12 plus hours to spend a weekend with one guy, and spend time in his gym. And there's just, once you get connected, and there's probably more of that now with the the internet, and you can kind of like make connections in different cities. Find somebody who's doing what you want to do well, and then ask one, what's it cost for me to have you as my mentor, or for me to spend some time learning from you? Almost every one of those people have been very generous. One of my top trainers walked into my gym, and he's like, "Hey, I heard from my aunt, who knows your mom, that you're a trainer, and I think you're good, but would you be willing to teach me?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll coach you a little bit." And it was like a 2-year process, and then I hired him on when I needed a trainer, and he's been with me a number of years now, and he does a fantastic job. But like, that's flattering as a trainer or a gym owner to have somebody come say, "Hey, can I come learn from you? I hear you're doing a good job." So that would be the big one. Get a good mentor, find somebody, and then probably your clients are one of your best assets. Like generally one-on-one training, we're dealing with a clientele at a different economic level than ourselves. Usually the trainers, we're kind of, when we start out, entry level. And a lot of times these are people who are successful in their field, might be sales, might be a business owner. those guys have some great knowledge if you're just willing to be quiet and listen, or to just ask the question like, hey, what would you think would benefit my business? How could I become a better trainer, and offer you a better service? Because often it is not like a fancier program, or, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, I think I moved a guy twice, maybe 3 times in 1 week. And he's kind of a big deal. And the guy's got 20 plus businesses. He's a very busy guy. He's Mitch, we're going for a walk today. And I was like, you're paying me $100, so I guess we'll go for a walk. And we're walking, and he says, my time's worth a ton. I fraction out a portion of my day to see you. And when you move it, it's very difficult. And it comes off as really unprofessional, because if you're too busy to kind of handle the schedule, you need to hire yourself an assistant and get somebody to kind of manage your schedule. And it's one of the biggest changes. I was a very busy trainer at that time. That just catapulted me into a different level and just a way more professional setting. And it freed up a ton of time, which I didn't realize I was wasting, because you get done with your day as a trainer and you're texting clients for 2-3 hours trying to manage your schedule. Even a virtual assistant would have been gold. I just stumbled upon like the best person I could have ever gotten. So that really helped.
To kind of build off that point, and I think we both made this mistake early on, is we had a little bit of this halo effect. So one of the guys that taught us a lot about the physical training side, we try to learn some of the business side from him. And he was really, really strong on one side, but not very strong on the business side. So really taking into account what they're really good at. And the other thing that you talked about with the clients, I completely agree with that. Because I think so many times in this industry, we look at like, okay, who's the best gym owner, and kind of learn from them, which I think is good to learn from them, but also they're just good business. And when I talk numbers with my clients, like the stuff the gyms are doing, like it's just such small potatoes compared to like some of the business of our clients. And so sometimes we get so focused of like, this is a fitness space and we got to do things a certain way. But like when we start looking outside of that, it's like, what is just good business? We can really take it to that next level.
Yep. Yeah. Totally agree.
And I love that. And what's also striking too is how you remember those key pieces of advice, whether it was 10 years ago or 15, like they're still like, you were just like right off the bat, like this was a great piece of advice. And so I love that, connecting with people that just give you those nuggets. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of content. It's just a couple of key things to make your brain think about things differently and execute in a way that's consistent with who you are and what you want. So besides listening to people's good advice and following it, what else do you think is been part of your career that has made you so successful at running your gym, being such a good trainer, managing people?
Yeah, those are different skill sets, by the way. So I was a very good trainer. And then, my career kind of took a leap when I started studying like a different level of training, really investing in my education. So at one point, I think I had a 6-week waiting list for new clients. Like I was doing 60 plus hours a week, and that's great, but it's not a long game. It's very hard to kind of sustain that. But I developed that skill set, and then had this dream of like opening the gym. And my first place is around 2,200 square feet. And I remember a client coming in the open house, and she's like, "Oh, this is your dream." I was like, "Nope, this isn't. Like this is on a step towards my dream, but it's not where I wanted to be yet." And I was woefully unprepared for the things that make you a good gym owner and a manager of people and an employer. And so I think the underlying thing I had for me, I was a horrible student, like high school, not good. But what I learned through college was how to learn and the joy of learning, and just, I just had this voracious appetite. Like I'm really curious. I love learning about different things. And so there's knowledge out there. It's either a person or a book. It's, YouTube channel. There's something to teach you. And so I had to really catch up with these skills of running a business. And so a couple of clients were generous enough to sit down with me. One, I remember going with a 13-week rolling cash flow. He's like, "Do you know how to run one?" He's like, "This is so you don't come to payroll and like, ooh, I don't have money for payroll." Got to be a pretty bad feeling, and I've never gotten there, so I'm kind of glad he took that with me. So a lot of business books. I think a couple things that set me up for success were some basic principles. I didn't come into this with a huge debt load. I paid cash for all my equipment. I had that actually before I even opened up my gym. I had been storing it, been buying it, had the space laid out, knew what I wanted. I had to borrow a little bit of money, but it was enough that I knew my horizon to pay it off, but I wasn't going to be indebted and it wasn't going to be in a bad spot. And so just basic principles of saying, okay, where's the money going to come from? How do I break this down? What would I need to pay somebody, to make a profit margin on different things? And some of those things did change throughout the time, because you learn a lot those first couple of years in business. If you don't, you generally go out of business. And so hard knocks there on that. So, I think just having that ability to say help when I need it, understand where your weaknesses lie, either hire that out, get staff to kind of handle that stuff that you're not good at. And then I think the one thing that is different than a lot of the places I see in town where they're kind of studio driven. So there's plenty of competition in town with trainers, but they tend to be one trainer with maybe one or two people under them, and they're very ego driven. Because this industry, again, like when you're the good trainer, it's about coming to see you. And I never wanted that. I wanted them to come see my center. And so that was part of the internship program, and investing back into my staff and saying, how do I make them the best trainers I can be? I mean, the amount of money I spend on education in-house, I signed over a check, like probably more than my first 3 cars combined today, to bring in a speaker for 2 days this year. And I was like, oh, this is like, it hurts. But it's also like, if you want to have a team that loves working for you, like you got to have a team you love and love investing in. And I have that, and I'll pour my heart and soul into them. In fact, like bringing in the best people to say, hey guys, like these are some of my favorite mentors. I want you to learn from them too. And I think a lot of times you see that in the industry where it's very ego driven. You get that one personality and they just can't give up control and see somebody else succeed. And that's, I think, one of the keys to where my business has thrived as a one-on-one, because it's no longer about me. It's about my center and my team.
2 big things that stood out to me there. The one, and you kind of grazed over this because it was so long ago and you were so good at it, is you were a really good trainer before you went over to the gym ownership side. You talked about like a 6-week waiting list. Like I see so many people now that don't even have the skill set of being a good trainer, and they're worried about how to make the money. Yeah. And so spending more of that time of learning that skill set, because there is so much to learn. There's so much to learn on the nutrition side, the exercise side, the behavior science side. Okay, that's one skill set you have to have. Now we're going to the business side. It's the whole, like accounting, from marketing to sales, all these different things, learning that. So being a good trainer first, if that's what you're going to have as a training facility, I think is super important. And then the second part of that of like, okay, now you're a great trainer. That doesn't mean you're going to translate to a great business owner. And so taking really a pause from that skill set of being a trainer since you've got there of like, okay, now I need to learn this whole other field, and not just taking that leap of faith. And we see this with all professions. Like I hear of the, doctors doing this thing too, of any kind of practitioner of like, I'm good at this skill set. Then I'm moving over to the business side, which is a whole different animal. Yeah.
I also thought that you highlighted that notion of understanding your own weaknesses. And that's where, when I work with people, I see that gap sometimes where people just don't want to acknowledge their own failings. And they view it as sort of this isn't going to make me look good or set me apart. But it does actually set you apart if you understand where your strengths are. And like you said, either grow those areas or find people that can work with you that complement that. Because what we see, and I think sometimes this is at least what I feel like I'm seeing sometimes at fitness conferences, and in other industries as well, is if I don't own my own weaknesses, it's easier then to blame the client or blame the people that I have to manage, because I'm not recognizing what part I'm not able to fulfill. And so therefore it's others' fault, which is then harder to learn from. So I really like that you highlighted that. And I think all the interns and the trainers that you have definitely benefit from your perspective on that. What do you think is the biggest pro and the biggest con of owning your own facility?
We
only have so much time.
Right. I'll wrap it up a little bit.
No, I'm not kidding.
you get to see things done right. You know, like we have tons of Instagram accounts of like gyms fails and gym weirdos and all kinds of stuff. Like there's no end of like bad fitness stuff out there. It's rare that you come into a place and you don't see everything. You see everything being done right. And that's one thing I really love. Like people are getting good advice. They're getting great results. You know, they're referring clients in and friends like that. That part's great. Plus, you know, after you're in the business for a while, it allows you a little bit more freedom than a training, right? You go from my hourly income is my time is my income to my business provides me more time. And, you know, like, you know, there's nothing faster than a 20-year overnight success, right? Like it just takes a long time to build this stuff. And a lot of these guys want to jump right into it. And, you know, it does, it takes work. Con wise, there's a lot of stuff you don't plan on, you know, like you don't think about all those little bills, you know, the water bill, the AC bill, you know, the cell phone bill and the Wi-Fi bill. You get all these things that like, I kind of put those costs in there. And then you got employees that maybe aren't a great fit or don't stay very long or, you know, like unexpectedly leave, even though it's, you know, a lot of things are going well. Like, you know, you go to bed with your business and you wake up with your business and it's a lot of stress sometimes. I don't think there's been probably besides parenting more emotionally highs and lows than owning a business. And, you know, I think my big goal is just to narrow those gaps a little bit. So it's just a little less vibration in between the highs and lows.
I think one of the issues with the gym space is people only know trainer and gym owner. And so there's, you know, when we talk to coaches, they don't know what the next step is. One thing that I'm a bit bullish on that I think could be a more popular thing is this entrepreneurship. And so you have an employee that wants to do something that you're not currently doing that's kind of growing a different market share inside your business. So if you can do that, you could get some of the financial rewards of growing something different. You can do it under the shelter of someone else that's already kind of helping with the marketing, has the space, all this different stuff. So it's a lot of the rewards without some of the risk. And because, you know, if someone was to open up a different thing that didn't compete with yours, fit into your model and help with the reputation, like, you know, myself as a gym owner, like I would be all for that. And so
all day long
in there. So I just want coaches to know, like, there's a lot more than just the training, and a lot more than just the ownership. And really, you know, and we've talked quite a bit about this, is like I can make pretty strong pros and cons on both fronts of like, you know, you could be a very highly paid personal trainer, and at the end of the day, you can go home. You don't have to worry about the issues. You know, the best thing of being a gym owner is when things are going well. The problem is if things aren't going well, you also get that too. So you get the highs.
You get it all.
So just kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're just talking about a trainer or coach or versus gym owner. So if someone wants to be that ultimate fitness coach, what do you think it takes?
Within that, I think you need that ability to learn, and constantly look at what can I do better. Treating if you were just a personal trainer, I don't want to say just a personal trainer, but when I was only training and I didn't have the business, I still looked at it like a business. You know, what's my brand going to represent? How am I treating customers? How am I following up with customer service? You know, like the session's part of it, but the preparation before, the follow-up afterwards, those are sometimes some of the bigger things. You know, I would go to people's PT appointments. I'd meet with their doctors after surgeries and stuff and say, hey, where do we got to follow stuff? I think keeping a level of professionalism, you know, like it's easy to get close to your clients, but you're still coaching them. And that can be very hard sometimes. You know, you get, you know, familiar, and what'll happen sometimes is you lose your authority position, and then, you now have a, you know, friendship, and you're not really, you know, the side of exercise in there. And if you really want to create that business, you know, like you have to kind of keep some of that boundary, within there. again, I go back to mentoring. I'd find somebody doing it really well. Get in there, spend a lot of your money educating, looking at another skill set. How can I help people? I think this behavior side of it, the behavior coaching, it's probably the biggest missing link in the industry. Like, we know what the client needs to do. Often the client knows what they need to do. What they don't know is why they're not doing it or why they're doing the thing they shouldn't be doing. And that I really applaud you guys, because that, if you can like get people focused on that, start teaching it, it's going to revolutionize. I think there's a big gap coming in the industry. I think we're going to see a strong differentiation between the trainer who's at the gym just making people work, and the trainer who is actually life coaching, health coaching, really helping that behavior change and getting that person in a healthier spot. And if you can figure that part out, you're going to dominate this industry in the next 20 years.
Yeah, and of course we agree with that. We teach the stuff, but really, like, our one of our top points is you start to figure some of this stuff out after doing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
But like, how do we get the coach, right out of, I've just done my certified personal training. How do I start implementing the stuff right away? So we can cut down a decade of doing it the hard way, the not the best way, to get better results, to make it easier for people, just all around it, but just a better experience for everybody involved.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about, as a coach or as a personal trainer, what's your brand? And it's not about a logo necessarily or things like that. But I do feel like people forget a couple of things. A, how do I present myself, right? Because you had that point of authority. Yeah. And if I'm coming to someone to pay them for their expertise, I would like some expertise, and it needs to feel like your value add, right? And so it's everything from how you put yourself together, that it looks like you made this a priority and didn't just roll out of bed, right? As well as, I've listened to you, and I'm not going to just throw out a bunch of suggestions because, they're in the top 15 suggestions for how to lose weight on the internet, but that I've heard you and I recognize that you say you never eat vegetables. So I'm not going to suggest that you get 2 servings of it in every single day starting tomorrow, right? Like, there's that connection, and back to the behavior. So I really like that you pointed that out for people too, because I think they underestimate how much just thinking about how you present yourself and how you give to people can propel you to being that person that's sought after and valued. So I love that you said that. Our last question is, what do you think it takes to be a good gym owner? We talked a little bit about that. It might not be for everybody, but if you're going to own your own facility, what does it take to be that ultimate gym owner? Yeah.
I think I'm kind of big on servant leadership, in the sense that, like, your employees are your biggest asset. I like to joke, like my biggest business isn't getting more clients, it's making better trainers. Because if I invest in my staff, and I have a staff of experts who love where they work, like, it just attracts people. It becomes that referable experience. This is definitely true in the one-on-one. Like, it's probably some business, like, overall stuff you should think about. But generally, if you have a staff who loves to show up, they love the population they're serving, and they know you've got their back in terms of helping them become the best they can be. Like it's been a really good recipe for success for me. And the other stuff, like, read the E-Myth and some of these basic books about running your business. Don't put yourself in a stressful situation where you've borrowed so much money you're not sure if you can make payroll. Like that, it's just a really unnecessary spot to be in. But this is more the philosophical side of it. And then make sure it's something you love. Like I really have wanted to see the fitness industry improve and provide a service that was missing. And I forget who said it, but they're like, don't be the best, be the only. That's how you stand out in the market. Like, find your thing and do it so well there is no other option in town. Like, yeah, of course, you go see them if you want to be the healthiest executive in town. Like, we're the place people come to see. And I think, yeah, that's helped us stand out, I guess, if I had to nutshell what I do.
Nice. Love it. So as we wrap things up here, if someone wants to reach out to learn more about your internship program or get some mentorship or just, set up a call with you, what's the best way for people to reach out and get a hold of you or find out more about your gym or you?
Yeah, our website is probably the easiest one. They can just fill an inquiry in there. That'll come right to us. It's gripcenter.com. I'm sure you guys will link to it in the show notes. That's probably the easiest way. Currently, our interns, we have one sophomore. We have one kid who came out of construction, loves fitness. And then we've got a former world competitor on the world stage for figure who is a teacher and always wanted to be a trainer. And those are our current 3 interns. And they are just fantastic people with a passion for learning. And I'll take interns at any stage. Like I love teaching this stuff. We love making the industry better. I just wish there were more opportunities out there for people.
Yeah. So if you want to learn from one of the best one-on-one personal trainers and gym owners in the nation, check out Mitch Shooks. And so, thanks for coming on and helping us educate the fitness professionals about the training space.
Yeah. Thanks,
yeah, it's
Mitch.
great talking with you guys. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Bye.